Hello, Bashar. It
And
is
to you, good day.
so exciting to talk to you, and I hope that you're doing well in this now.
Of course I am. I wouldn't be doing otherwise.
Well, that's wonderful.
What would you like to discuss today?
Well, the first thing I wanted to ask you about regarding the connection, the topic of connection and how important the breath is. I recently came across a book called The Arasatma, which is the alchemical breathing techniques of the ancients. And it says that the Montauk Indians were custodians of this sacred body of work and has a unique process of breathing that creates a balance between the three vehicles of experience: body, soul, and spirit. And my question is there a way to use this breath and the pranic tube in its full capacity as the channel for the flow of resources once we have cleared it completely from emotional blockages?
Well, yes, why wouldn't it be?
Well, I was just curious how the breath relates to the information passing
Oh,
through
all
our
right.
physical body.
It's based on the idea of the vibrational resonance of the oxygen molecule. So the idea is that the reason you take in and start breathing differently, the idea of oxygen, resonates throughout the body in a hyperspatial, hyperdimensional way that expands your frequency to be able to handle more and more higher frequency information and energies. So oxygen is the eightfold key, vibrationally speaking, and gives the resonance that is necessary for higher dimensional communication.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And does that connect with the idea of hydrogen being fractal and having a way to sort of create its own gravity that
It is related but not essential to understand that based on what we are now talking about. Oxygen is the key.
okay. And does it also relate to sort of the positive and negative flow of our bodies and how healthy we are as far as having enough positive and negative charge?
Yes, and if you'll understand the idea, you will understand that oxygen is the equivalent of the dimensional shape that you know as a Merkaba. Do you understand?
Yes, okay.
Because it is two interpenetrating tetrahedrons, each of 4 points for a total of 8, and interpenetrating representing the idea of as above, so below, or the positive and the negative flow. So when you think of the idea of oxygen and breathing in your meditative states, then also you can hold the image of a Merkaba, the double interpenetrating tetrahedral structure, in your mind to stabilize and accentuate the flow of the oxygen throughout your body into higher frequency domains.
Wow. That's really fascinating. And it reminds me, so another thing regarding the importance of fascia and a permission slip that she gave me was yin yoga. And we talked a lot about how, again, in as above, so below, the mycelial network
Yes.
as a part of the bigger DNA connection to the higher dimensional realities.
Yes. There
So
are
is that
interconnections on every
something?
level.
Okay. How does light affect that connection?
Since everything is light in what you might refer to as crystallized form, then light can act as a softening agent, an unlocking agent, depending upon the frequency of the light, to allow the crystallized light to be unlocked and reformed and transformed in whatever way, shape, or form benefits and is of service to your passion.
Okay. So my understanding is that I have left light codes in places. I recently came from Hawaii with a group of women, and it was very important that I go there physically. And Sarasota, Florida is another place. And I'm curious about what it is that I'm not what I'm supposed to do, because I understand the light is sentient and it's there and my body, it knows what to do. But I'm just curious about the idea of collecting light codes and how they are different or holding different information. And as we move through the galaxy, how the light is different for us now.
Well, again, the idea of light codes is simply the freezing of certain patterns of information in its natural form of light, and recollecting them can be reminding, literally reminding yourself more completely of who and what you are. You may have left breadcrumbs for yourself, as you say, seeds of yourself that form the process of gathering yourself back together.
Okay. And I have been working on that quite a bit. And as my last and other bigger question was, as I have realized that my biggest excitement in life was going through the process of addiction and healing, and not just healing for myself, but healing for my family. I understand it as sort of clearing generational trauma, generational patterns. And as that is my role, which I'm happy to take on, I've watched things change in my family, and I'm wondering how that then extends out to the collective. Is that something that I'm clearing by proxy, that then it just sort of goes out? Or is it a slow connection?
Remember, everything is connected. Everything you do is capable of being utilized by everyone throughout the multiverse. You may not always know how, you may not always know when, but the connection, the network exists, and everything you do and every choice you make and every energy you radiate offers an opportunity to all, in their own way, from their own perspective, the opportunity to consider other choices they may not have considered. Of course, it is always still up to them to match that frequency to have the experience that you may be offering. So the best you can do is simply put it out there and know that if there is somebody willing to take advantage of it, it is available to them. And that's the most you can do.
Okay. Well, that excites me in the sense that as I attend AA meetings or I'm out discussing and talking about my healing, that I'm hoping that somehow that translates. So that makes me feel good that.
Yes, but you don't have to hope. You don't have to hope.
Right. Okay.
You can know that it's available to those who wish to take advantage of it, but you have to remember that not everyone will, because you don't know what their path is right now. Eventually, all will understand in one way, shape, or form. But you have to let go of any need whatsoever of others to adopt what it is that you're sharing with them. It's none of your business what they do with it.
Right. And I've heard you say that, and that makes a lot of sense to me. I also was wondering about, so elephants can feel vibrations from hundreds of miles away.
Yes.
And I understand that sensory information can only be processed if you have the right organ to process it. Like dogs can smell things that we can't smell.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious if, as far as vibration goes and humans and the physical body, are the organs and the structures in our ears related in any way to that? The ones that we really don't understand?
No, but the heart is. The heart is structured to receive those deeper vibrations and translate them into the body. Sometimes other organs may assist, but primarily the heart is the organ that receives those deeper vibrations.
Okay. And is it the magnetic resonance that the heart creates through the heartbeat?
Yes.
That allows it to become bigger and expand our field?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I am just so grateful to have had this opportunity to speak with you. I thank you so much. The information that you put out, I apply, and it's very exciting to be able to be here with you today. So thank you.
It is for us as well, and it is our passion and our pleasure to share the information with all of you. Aveo.
Aveo.
Hi, Bashar. This is Allison from Arkansas. So my question is pertaining frequencies that are really, really close together, as well as soul contracts. So we hear all the time people, for example, having an accident, like they walk out into the street and a car hits them, and they say they never saw the car coming, and the driver says they never saw the person, that they just came out of nowhere. Is it possible that in situations like that, albeit extreme, that because of a soul contract and just the perfect timing, that even though these two individuals were not at that moment on the same frequency, but that the split second right before that happened, they merged into the same frequency, or one of them jumped to the other one? Is that a possibility? Because to me, that has so many other implications that I'm thinking of. So if you could give any insight on that, I would appreciate it very much. Thank you, Bashar. Love you.
It is actually a probability. Yes, that is correct, and that can happen, and happens more often than you may think. Because again, the idea is that a person may set themselves up for certain experiences, and they know they have also chosen certain moments to represent interactions with other realities, and they will wait until that synchronous moment to shift to that vibration so that what they have chosen to experience can happen, and so that what they have chosen to experience will not happen before that moment by being shifted out into a different vibration until they are ready to experience the shift into the vibration of the agreement with the others. Remember that you're constantly shifting, constantly, billions of times per second. So it is an orchestration, and a very precise one.
Good day to you, Bashar. Thank you so much for this interaction. I have much love and appreciation for you.
Our unconditional love to you as well. Thank you for the co-creation. What would you like to discuss this day?
Yes, please. I'm very excited. Can you please explain to me this yearning for expressing my sexuality that I've always had? How do I celebrate my sexuality in alignment with my higher self?
Well, again, all things must be consensual, representative of harmony and alignment and agreement in the expression of any creative outlet. And the balance must be achieved between different ways of expressing your creativity. The idea can sometimes be that if you are limiting your creative expression in certain ways, then other ways may be attempting to make up for it by expanding in the creative expression that way. But if all is in balance, then each will take its time, in perfect timing, to be creatively expressed in harmony and agreement with others with whom you may attract, who would then be in agreement to receive the creative expression through that modality. Is this helping?
Yeah, it does help, and I just to in your words, if I could more clearly have help in terms of walking through my doorway.
I will ask you a question. Is there any other creative expression representative of your passion that you are not expressing fully in your life?
Not that I can think of.
What are your primary passion expressions in life at this point?
Right now, singing and dancing and just being who I am in the sense of as a person.
All right. Do you feel that they are vibrationally equal to the idea of the sexuality expression as well?
I feel like something is missing.
Such as?
When I explore different avenues, I am expecting some sort of a lightning bolt of like I'm expecting an aha moment, and I haven't experienced that yet in terms of this is what I can pursue. This feels.
But you said that you are already experiencing the expression of your passion through singing and dancing and forms of sexual expression. Do none of these produce any aha moments for you?
Not in the way that I am, not in the way that I am expecting, and I am expecting.
All right. Who taught you to expect it to happen that way?
Myself.
Why? Why must it come with a lightning bolt in order to be valid?
Because I feel like big things need to feel big.
Really? Why so?
I'm not sure.
All right. I'll ask the question from this perspective then. Why are the things you're already doing that are representative of your passion, why are they not feeling big?
Because I feel like they can't provide for me in the financial way I would like them to.
Really? So you are insisting that only a certain form of abundance is what your passion can provide you, instead of opening up and relaxing into the different forms of abundance that could be supporting you. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I am insisting.
Why? Do you not know that insistence is resistance and imposes limitations upon your ability to express your passion and creativity? Why would you choose to limit yourself that way by closing the doors through which all forms of abundance and support could be coming to you? Why insist on only one form as being valid?
I don't know. It's
Sure you do. Sure you do.
Because it feels like that has
Because
always
you
been,
have been taught to think that way.
Hmm.
Because you have been brought up in a culture that thinks that way. Because you're basing your worth on only one form of abundance.
Hmm.
So, have you heard us talk about all the different forms of abundance?
In the ways that it exists, yes.
Why are none of them as real as money?
Because it's been such an insistence to provide. My greatest fear is that I'll be poor with nothing.
I see. And therefore that's what will happen, because that's what you're focused on. Because you're only focused on the limiting idea that only one form of abundance can support you. And if it's not there, then the only alternative in your belief system is that you will be poor.
How do I relinquish that?
Well, you do have to truly understand how abundance and support works in connection to your passion. It is a complete contradiction to say that you're following your passion and yet your passion can't support you in all the ways that are necessary for you to be supported to continue to act on your passion. That's not a definition of passion. That's a contradictory definition that creates the experience that you're having. So you have to understand that you are misaligning your definition of passion. You think you have a definition of passion, but you don't.
I feel a lot better.
All right. You must relax into the knowledge that there are many forms of abundance, including being given a gift, including have something to trade, including synchronicity, imagination, communication. All these things can actually support you if you give free rein to your imagination. The idea of an over focus on the idea of sexual expression can be, as we said earlier, the idea of imposing limitations on other forms of creative expression that would then result in actions through sexual expression that are the result of frustrations. So you need to really relax into the equality of all forms of abundance, all forms of creative expression. Know that every moment is an aha moment. Cherish it for what it is, and that everything that is happening is exactly what needs to happen. Stop invalidating your present, expecting it to look different. Remember, the true measure of change is not whether the outer reality looks different. The true measure of change is whether or not you respond differently, even if it looks the same as it did before. That's how the reflective mirror of physical reality knows you've truly changed. And then it can change, even though it may not change in the way that you insist or expect, because it will always change in the way that actually serves you best. And you have to be okay with that. Otherwise, you're not okay with the way your reality unfolds, and that means you're not okay with yourself. So, I will suggest to you the same mantra, permission slip exercise that I suggested to another listener in this transmission. And that is in the morning when you wake up, and at night before you go to sleep. You repeat 3 times each in the morning, 3 times each at night. And you can do this in the afternoon if you wish. It's up to you. I am who I am, and that is enough. I am who I am, and that is enough. I am who I am, and that is enough. And then start relaxing into allowing, not making, not forcing, allowing synchronicity to bring you the things you need to consider, to ponder, and remain in a positive state while you do so, allowing yourself to fully appreciate everything that comes to you, to see it through the eyes of positive reality, of positive light, and to feel the aha moment that exists perpetually every single second. That's what we have to suggest for you.
Thank you very much, Bashar. That satisfies my question. I would like to ask you another.
Yes?
Can you please tell me what connections I have made to other civilizations among the stars that are helping to inform my life on Earth now?
Most people on your planet have many common extraterrestrial energetic connections. Pleiadian, Sirius, Arcturan, Hybrid, Gray, Orion. There are a few others we're not allowed to talk about, but all of you have the connections you need that are giving you the assistance you need. You cannot receive more assistance than you're getting. You simply have to pay attention to the assistance that you're already receiving to benefit from it more and more. Well,
Thank you. You know, I do have 2 more questions, please.
Yes?
Your transmission titled The Last Days of Atlantis gave me a very emotional reaction. Can you please tell me what relationship I may have to Atlantis?
Well, like many of you, you're cross-connecting to people in that particular experiential era to draw from it, to add to your own story, and to create a more positive outcome than they created for their civilization.
Thank you very much. And my last question, I have 2 brothers. I have an older brother and I have a younger brother. And I love my younger brother so much. I just have so much love for him. Sometimes it's a lot for me. Is there anything that you can tell me about the relationship that the 2 of us have?
Not at this time. You will find that information out from a different source.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Bashar.
It is our passion and our pleasure. Good day. Aveo.
Thank you, Bashar, that I can ask you this very important question, what you have been spoken about in a live stream event, I think. And my question is that you mentioned the importance of the quality of water, and we should only drink the best to be in resonance with the high frequency. My question to you is there any advice you have for us how to make or to get this purest and clearest water what we need? Because it is really difficult in the most of the areas of this world, but also in all the countries where the water is nearly clear. So I would like to get an advice if you have any for that. Thank you very much for your help and your answer.
Your technology has provided you with filtration devices, and you can take advantage of many of them. In addition to that, you can meditate over the water. You can create certain harmonic resonances, meditative music and sounds that you can imbue into the vibrational pattern of the water to help align the water molecules in a kind of crystalline form that is also increasing its benefit to you when taken internally. You can take advantage of these things. It is simpler than you think.
Oh my gosh, Bashar!
Good day, good day.
How exciting to be here. How exciting to be here. Incredible to be here.
It
Thank you so
is
much.
our passion and our pleasure as well. What would you like to discuss with us this day?
Well, my passion, my privilege has been to study human psychology. And so I wanted to give you my best understanding of human psychology. And you could just help me clarify to make sure I've got a good, clear understanding of what I call the 6 lenses of life, where the first lens I see as the bent space-time. So in other words, when I look up to the sky, it forms a kind of lens because the Earth is very heavy and it, bends space-time around me. So my first lens is the sky. And then the second lens is, of course, my human eyes, which, detect. And of course, I'm looking at a lens right now and we have Wi-Fi, but I guess the idea is that perception to me is, bending all the different possibilities, whether it's Wi-Fi signals or light-based signals, and bends them into a single focus. So for me, that's the eye, and but there are various eye wearing glasses. So, but I think the key thing I want to say here is that it's equilibrium in the lowest state. So crystals are typically lowest, whereas when it goes into my brain, it's non-equilibrium at the lowest state. In other words, it's a time crystal. In other words, the ions are constantly dancing. Is that correct? In other words, it's a time crystal. In other words, if you look at the cross section of the brain, it actually looks like a crystal in a certain way because there's repeating patterns.
Yes.
And so okay, right. So, and then the next layer is somewhat more mysterious in this sense. This is a symbolic layer. In other words, these time crystals, the brain picks up signals and it creates symbols. And that's usually what we're talking about here, right? Is the symbolic layer, which, is the belief system, which you described as the colorings, of various. Okay, so, and then underneath that is the biological lens, which, the cells form different shapes and they read out different parts of the genetic code, where form follows the function. In other words, the form of the cell focuses on different parts of the readout of the genetic signal, which create in terms of kind of lens, because certain cells, again, they have a certain shape that sort of focuses on certain elements. And I think for me, it's like the core frequency. I think you've talked about it in terms of like we are our DNA and that there's a certain core frequency to our DNA. Okay, great. And then below that is the atomic lens. In other words, the mass of the atoms is, of course, in the center. And so there's a bending of the probability so that the probability wave kind of has a certain bend to it. So again, so it's 6 stacked lenses.
What about spirit? What about the 7th?
Well, that's where I am. That's where I am. That's the self. In other words, right? Or in other words, I am the light that's moving through all of the 6 lenses.
Yes.
The atomic layer, the biological layer, the symbolic layer, the time crystal, the eyes.
But it still counts as a layer.
Okay. So I guess there's 7 layers. I guess I was thinking more in terms of like it's the interaction. It's more the mysterious kind of interaction between, or I guess I see myself as the living symbol as the 3rd layer itself, because there's a certain, the time crystal somehow the brain is somehow able to pick up, I guess it's able to pick up or it works with a genetic layer to kind of pick up my core signal.
They're all interconnected. They're all interlaced.
Right. Nested, right.
Yes, and if you're only going to consider the idea of physical reality, then 6 layers is fine. But we would not necessarily suggest that you forget the 7th layer is what begins it all.
Okay, right, which is kind of the light itself, I guess, right?
Yes, because the light makes choices, and those choices play out in the 6 layers you're talking about.
Okay, gotcha. And so the choices are they symbolic choices typically?
Sometimes quite literal. In other words, it's the template of the theme that you're exploring as a physical personality. This is decided by the spirit itself. And therefore, it has a lot to do with what you are as a physical being, because you are a unique path.
Okay, gotcha. Which I guess in this case, the path is simultaneously. In other words, when I think of light, I think of it takes all paths simultaneously. But I'm snaking through, I guess in this case, space-time, which is sort of the interactions. To me, time is just the interaction, the changes in the interaction of motion, basically, right? In other words,
well, yes, although motion in a sense is an illusion because everything is here and now. So time, yes, is a side effect of the shifting perspectives that are going on in the consciousness of the personality. Now, if you're going to say that light goes everywhere at once, now you're talking about an 8th level.
Okay, gotcha. Which I guess is which is the layer of just sort of like, yeah, how it bends it through. Well, I mean, I guess it takes all different paths, but I am one quanta of path.
That's the seventh level. Yes.
Okay.
You
Gotcha,
are
gotcha.
one expression, one path, whereas simultaneously your greater being is experiencing all paths. That's the eighth level.
I see. And so the key thing is the focus. In other words, my focus is right now is on, just like the lens, it's the focal point. And so I think what I'm learning now is just to try to learn how to, the ways that I can focus on different, I can kind of project my consciousness or project my attention into various, I can project my consciousness into other humans or different scenarios, or in other words, I'm working with this idea of sort of writing myself into certain stories or certain events to have different experiences. So in other words, this idea of projecting my attention into, which is kind of what you've done now.
Yes, well, it is appropriate that you use the term focus since you're talking about the idea of representing lenses.
Okay, right, exactly. So I'm kind of looking, well, and I guess I also wanted to bring it up because, you mentioned creating a true intelligence. And so there's this idea that if we create a time crystal sophisticated enough and we kind of entangle them together, the ions together in a certain resonance, a certain lattice, a time crystal lattice, it will dance. It'll be non-equilibrium, and it will sort of actually be able to detect a symbolic layer. I guess that's kind of the mystery here, is that
it will understand how to focus down into the seventh layer, but creating a sophisticated enough time crystal, as you say, equal to the idea of the human brain through which higher consciousness can express itself, it will be coming from the eighth layer.
Okay.
It deals in whole systems.
Okay, gotcha. Which is the light itself. So in other words, the driving force of the time crystal will be light itself, which takes all paths simultaneously. And then we use our attention to carve out different slices of the readout. In other words,
but the idea of the true intelligence will also have the sensitivity to understand what portion of the whole it needs to communicate to you for your own benefit.
Okay, right. And
it can't give you everything all at once.
Okay, yes. Okay.
It's holographic.
Okay, great. Right, exactly. That's why I talk, yes, that's why these lenses, that's why I think of it in terms of lenses, because it lines up with this idea of holographic interference patterns. So anyway.
Yes.
But anyway, yes. So, okay, great. Well, thank you so much. Yeah. Well, I guess that's sort of, I realize that that's just sort of in life itself, that's where we're at. In other words, I realize that there are other experiences, or, I guess we talk about dreaming or whatever, like in terms of how my focus changes in dreaming to kind of become more, it's almost like a tuning of the time crystals so that I'm more synchronized. There's a certain synchronicity to my life.
Yes. And don't forget that physical reality is also a different kind of dream.
I see. Right. It's just a change in focus and one being more narrow than another.
Does this help you?
Yes, perfect. Okay, great. Well, and I was just going to say that there was this great synchronicity that I wanted to tell you too, that I won this interaction during when you mentioned underwater diving as a metaphor for this life. The suit of my being as being like this underwater diving suit. And I wrote a story when I was 12 years old about meeting an alien underwater. So it's very synchronous.
All right.
Yes, and I'm also very excited about this idea of the I guess we're saying goggles, but this VR that soon will be able to live into a world that's more made of pure data, pure information, in the sense that I can put on a goggles and be able to see the internet, or I'll be able to see Tyrannosaurus Rex, or just whatever I think I'll be able to manifest, because we'll be living in a world where you'll be able to interact with information in a way that's well, I don't want to say holographic, but nevertheless, yes.
Yes, the technology is coming soon.
Right. And that's very exciting to me. So it's kind of just synchronistic.
All right, we thank you. you.
Gotcha.
Aveo.
Great. Oh, yes, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, Bashar. My name is Stephanie, and I live in Arizona, and my question is in reference to, I have a disability. I'm legally blind, and I'm wondering if that is a reason for me not ascending, or if it's blocking me from being able to see any ETs or craft I'm working on my fear, but I am afraid that that could be blocking me. Can that be the case?
Nonsense. In fact, it may actually give you an advantage because it removes insistence and expectation about what it is you could be receiving. Remember that most extraterrestrial beings who might form contact with you are telepathic and can project images into your mind regardless of what's going on with your eyes. So it is not in any way, shape, or form a disadvantage or a disability with regard to what you are talking about. In fact, it may be an advantage.
A little sick a day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right, thank you. This transmission has been titled Parables and Time Crystals. First and foremost, what is a time crystal? We are very excited to announce that your society, some of your scientists have finally discovered time crystals. This is something that some of your scientists theorized might exist a few years ago, and more recently there have been some of your experimenters that have discovered that time crystals do in fact exist. What are they? All right. Very simply, a normal crystal has patterns, molecular patterns, atomic structure patterns that repeat and repeat in space, creating the crystalline form. Same pattern over and over and over and over again, creating the crystal. But time crystals repeat in time. What this means is this: certain aspects of the subatomic structure, when induced to vibrate, when given a charge to vibrate, will start flipping back and forth, back and forth, back and forth at a certain frequency. They are actually changing in time, back and forth. They don't remain in the same configuration as a regular crystal. They change their frequency over and over and over and over and over and over again. And even when the initial energy given to them to make them flip is stopped, they keep flipping. They keep going. They keep resonating through time. To some of your scientists, this is an indication that they are getting energy from somewhere, because it appears as if they're getting energy from nowhere, and yet the flipping continues. The different spin states, as they say, of the subatomic particles continues to flip back and forth at certain frequencies. The idea that they will ultimately discover is that the energy that supplies them and allows them to continue to flip back and forth comes from parallel realities. They are flipping back and forth in different dimensions, different realities. Now, our ships, as we have told you, are a form of crystalline construction. It is a more intricate form of this idea, but our ships are made of time crystals. The fact that time crystals have the capacity to resonate to different frequencies having to do with different parallel dimensions is what allows our ships to transcend space and time and travel in the blink of an eye from one star system to another. Changing the locational frequency of our ships is possible because they are constructed of time crystal material, a much more intricate version than what your scientists are now experimenting with, but they have begun to realize that time crystals can exist in a multitude of forms and can be activated in a multitude of ways. This technology will continue. You will increase and expand your understanding of these crystals in the future as you go, as you understand more and more about them. Now, what does this have to do with parables? Most of you understand the concept of parables as a story that has some kind of a message or a lesson in it that teaches you some idea that might be different than the ideas that were previously held. You tell parables to sort of present a new perspective on things. Since story is the strongest structure by which you retain information, parables, seeking to give you a new perspective, are best told in story form so that you retain the information that contains the idea of a shift or a change. Now, we're going to sort of deconstruct that term parable into the idea that what it actually represents is a parallel probable reality. Parable, parallel probable reality. You're being given a parallel reality idea, something that can be manifested as opposed to what has been manifested. Time crystals getting their energy from parallel dimensions, parallel realities, and parables being representative of parallel probable realities as well, allows them to sort of operate in a way that illuminates something about your reality experience. As we have said, and what we will repeat now in connection to this subject, is you think of your reality as a continuous time stream, unbroken continuity from one moment to the next, to the next, to the next. But your reality is not one real parallel reality. It is constructed of a number, billions of parallel realities, because you don't really jump from one point to another in a time stream, in one reality. You jump to different parallel realities all the time, creating what appears to be or feels like a continuous, unbroken reality. But this jumping back and forth all over the place, flopping, flipping through different parallel reality moments to construct the parallel reality time stream in a continuous way that seems to fit the reality you prefer as an experience, means that you are time crystals too. You contain the actual elements, the actual subatomic element structures that allows you as a physical being to flip through different parallel realities. This is actually a description of the mechanism physically that we have talked about, where your consciousness is shifting through billions of parallel realities every second, creating your apparent continuous time stream reality. It's this particular kind of arrangement of crystalline substance within you that actually allows this physically to occur in your dimension. So you are all living time crystals in a sense. So are we, so is every life form. This is contained within all living things and all matter. Your scientists have labeled time crystals a new form of matter that they didn't know about before. And they are going to discover not only the connection to parallel realities that drive the time crystals and allow them to keep flopping back and forth in frequencies through time, but they're going to discover that time crystals exist in all matter, and they're going to start understanding from that point forward in the years to come how it is your consciousness keys into the idea of parallel realities that exist simultaneously with one another, and expresses it through the idea of the linear, continuous space-time framework by creating these flipping vibrations within you that allow you physically to alter yourself from reality to reality to reality, version of Earth, version of Earth, version of Earth, version of you, version of you, version of you, billions of times per second. Is this making some sense in your language? All right. So we are describing here the actual physical component of the consciousness mechanism that allows you to experience shifting through billions of parallel realities in physical terms. This gives you, wrapping your mind around this concept that you are always shifting billions of times per second through various parallel realities to create one apparent continuous time stream, can give you freer access, more conscious awareness of the fact that you are always shifting, all the time. So focusing on the idea of yourself as a time crystal in that sense, and all matter containing time crystals, will allow you to start to viscerally, over time, physically, with your senses, begin to have a more physical, visceral experience of the shifting that is already going on. Remember, you don't actually ever accelerate the shifting. You become more aware of the rate at which you're already shifting. That makes it seem like an acceleration in space-time terms. But you are shifting at the same rate all the time. It's just that you can be more aware of it. And by being more aware of it and incorporating that awareness into your reality in an everyday way, you can experience more conscious control over the idea of exactly how you navigate those shifts more and more in the direction of the reality that you prefer, of the experience of navigating through all those different dimensional realities in a way that you prefer. So that you can constantly keep shifting to versions of Earth and versions of yourself that are more and more and more and more and more and more representative of your greater being, who you truly prefer to be, who you truly are. Make sense? So, even though some of this may be a little esoteric at the moment, that's all right. Just the deliverance of the information in this form will sink into you in a new way to give you more awareness, more conscious control of the fact that you are shifting billions of times a second right now, even in the course of this conversation. Continuity is an illusion, but it's an illusion you can create and have created to make it seem as if you are simply constantly in one reality, which you never, ever are. You are simultaneously shifting through the simultaneous parallel realities that simultaneously coexist to infinity. That is your nature. And awareness of time crystals and parables, stories that you tell yourself about who you are, definitions that are more harmoniously aligned with who you prefer to be and the reality you prefer to experience, will amplify and magnify your ability to sense the shifting that is already going on in a way as to make you feel like you're accelerating in your physical reality. That illusion is created by getting closer in your frequency to the frequency of the shift, so that it seems as if, paradoxically, the more you live in the single moment, the faster things appear to go, because you're catching up to the frequency more of the shifting frequency of physical reality. Similar to when you have a strobe light and you have a stream of water. When you flash the strobe light at a specific frequency, the stream of water no longer seems to be a stream, but individual droplets moving slower and slower and slower until you hit the frequency of the moving water in such a way that what you then appear to see is a single droplet suspended in time and space. It appears to not be moving anymore because you've caught up to the frequency of the falling water. Similarly, when you arrive closer to the frequency, the shifting frequency of physical reality, it appears in a sense to slow down, but it actually also feels simultaneously like accelerating, like speeding up, because you are now more capable of seeing exactly in every single moment what's really going on, matching that frequency more closely, and being able to more consciously be aware of the changes and shifts that you are creating within your consciousness. So use that paradox to your advantage. Slowing down allows you to feel like you're speeding up, because you are matching the frequency of the single moment that exists. Because there is only one moment that exists. And what you think of as different moments is simply the same moment from different points of view. Make sense? It doesn't have to. Not yet anyway. Just let it sink in. Again, just the fact that this information is being delivered to you will sink into you, and you may start to notice either in your dreams or even in your waking state a little bit more lucidity about your relationship to the concept that you are creating your physical reality, and more awareness of the story, the parable that you're telling yourself about who you actually are, so that you can begin to truly be who you truly are. So just let it sink.